Hi, and welcome to Basement Arcana's Behind the Screens. Tonight, Session 0 Character Building.
I'm Hui, your not-so-average DM.
And I'm Skip. Now, Duke, roll that beautiful bean footage. That's why I asked burgers or beans or pork chops.
Oh my god, okay.
Yep.
Now it all the beans versus the porks is all making so much sense.
Yeah, it was I got the other one still. We'll do that next time.
Okay, good.
We'll do that next time.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Character creation.
It's a wild, wild thing.
It's time consuming sometimes if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to play D&D, whatever version you're playing, you're going to want to sit down and build a character because you ain't playing without one.
And you're going to want to do it well. You don't have to do it well.
You could make the dumbest character.
Debauchery, pure debauchery, but as long as you see it as fun, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Who are you playing right now?
I'm playing Deucalion Shadowmane, a sorcerer, and I chose the Shadow Magic subclass.
Nice.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. I mean, it's with the Shadow Magic, you're kind of already pushing your background into a what is I should say the one that I've chosen for the past 5 characters.
Yeah, that's true.
The haunted one background.
Yes.
But I mean, I love that. I love that style. I love it, and it's a great backstory builder.
Sure. I agree. I agree.
Myself,
I'm playing Frick, a little fun little goblin Echo Knight fighter. With the military background, the soldier background.
Right.
Yeah. So, how did we start with these?
So I originally wanted to do something that was... I knew that the character that I was going to be creating, I kind of built the backstory prior, and I had him set up as a he had this influence from demons. So I was like, what kind of race do I want to play with this? I was like, human, that works, but I landed on tiefling. And it just, it made sense. It really did. I know that tieflings aren't really demons per se.
Right. Well, they're from demonic.
Yeah,
origin.
Exactly. And that's why I was like, all right, tieflings, whether you like it or not, kind of look like demons.
Yeah.
So I went with that. And for me, I really didn't even care if the tiefling race gave anything to the class that I was going to play.
Okay, so let's wind it back a little. Step 1. Just to break it down in a basic sort of way. Step 1, choose a race.
Choose a race.
How would you go about choosing your race?
I think it's really what you feel like. If you grew up watching Lord of the Rings, anything like that, I mean, chances are when you think of fantasy, you think of elves or dwarves or anything on that kind of spectrum. And if you really just want to play an elf and that's what you want to do, play an elf. Play a dwarf. Whatever you want to do. It's all D&D is about having fun.
Now, I ever since I watched Campaign 2 Critical Role, I thought it'd be super fun to play a goblin.
I mean, yeah.
So that's where I went.
That is
spoiler
if you haven't heard it. Is one of the most unique characters that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Character progression wise, as well as just how Sam Riegel plays him. Her.
Exactly. So were there any draws to your tiefling that sort of... I imagine you had a particular class, which is step 2, pick your class. Yeah. How did you choose your race in regards to your class? Were there certain bonuses or attribute buffs that worked well with that
so
class?
one of the 2 attribute bonuses worked well with the class that I was going with, but what I really liked about the Tiefling was the oh god, I'm drawing a blank on it now. The that reaction you have as a Tiefling,
Hellish Rebuke.
And I and the fact that I wanted him to have a demonic background and this kind of retaliation of that innate ability
Hellish
in him.
Rebuke is an absolutely
It is a
fantastic reaction.
and to have that from level 1.
Level 1.
And it's a reaction.
2d10?
It's like 2d10 at level 1. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a once per day reaction, but once per long rest. But I mean, if you're in a tight spot,
oh yeah,
it destroys,
Yeah.
and it can
right
really
off the
help
bat
you
from
out.
level 1. So now, as far as I knew that I wanted to play the goblin and the racial traits that that I get are, I enjoyed the idea that, his dexterity score increases and constitution is increased. But what I really liked was the nimble escape.
Yeah.
Because
And that's helped you.
Oh, so many times.
So many times.
Because in that situation, as a fighter, I didn't really plan on it being so much a like a metagame scenario where I was like, oh, this is gonna mesh up really well as a fighter. It just really worked out that he's just like a little spry goblin with the roguish sort of bonus action to disengage and hide. So that just piled on well with the fighter class.
Yeah, and I love how you built Frick. I mean, if out of all the campaigns we played, Frick has by far been one of my favorite characters.
He's absolutely my favorite character to play. And I had one other that was almost as fun to play, who also had Hellish Rebuke. He was a warlock. Next, I would say you move on to class, and there's a bunch of classes. Your paladins, your druids, warlocks, your sorcerers, clerics, wizards,
and even new ones now are artificer.
Yep. I would just say to start, grab your player's handbook, go through that. It'd probably be a little bit easier that way. And
even then, classes like Artificer that have come out recently, it's all personal choice.
Sure.
But a class like Artificer, which is extremely, extremely support-based, is not really a go-to beginner class. Like, I would generally, if you're just getting into D&D...
Barbarian. Great axe.
Yeah, great axe and swing. And even then, a fighter, a paladin, something that can do both healing, a little bit of combat, and imbuement type of deals. Something from the base game.
You want a character that can cast spells on a frequent basis, but also do melee damage. You're looking at a warlock.
Yeah.
Warlock's kind of the way to go in that point. And eventually you'll get to your fighting style or your patron if you're a warlock.
At level 3, right?
At level 3 you'll get to that, but that's later on.
That's a little bit later on. I mean, we're talking about character building right now. So when you're character building, you're going to be starting out at level 1, unless your DM has determined that they want to also start you off at 2nd or 3rd level. But chances are, if you're doing that, you've already been part of a few campaigns, and you generally know what's going on to begin with.
First time, my opinion, it's better to start at level 1. That way you can learn your character and your progression. Again, going back to being prepared, you can do your homework and look and see where you want your character to go.
And I've even started campaigns with not veteran players, but knowledgeable players at level 1, just because it's a great way to really build your campaign and your character as far as character progression and backstory.
Next, I guess it's probably one of the most fun parts is stat rolling.
Oh, yeah.
Make it,
It can make you or break you.
yeah.
Your character, not you.
It depends on how much of a stickler to your DM is.
Yeah.
'Cause sometimes they'll make it so you don't have any negative modifiers. So what you're doing is you are taking 4 dice, rolling that set of 4 dice 6 times. And
Yep.
each of the 1 times you roll it, you're going to take the 3 highest of your rolls and add those all together, put them off to the side, and once you get all 6 of your stats, Constitution, Charisma, Dexterity, Strength, Intelligence, and Wisdom, once you get all those together, you're gonna take a look at what class you're trying to build. You're probably gonna want to take for your Warlock. Say you're doing a Warlock, you're gonna pump your most points into your Charisma. Probably moving on to maybe Dexterity after that, and Constitution. That would be where I go with them. Toss up between which would come second, Constitution or Dexterity, depending on what you want. You want to be able to be nimbly bimbly, or do you want a higher HP level?
It also goes with how you want, like how your backstory of your character ties into the actual class you're playing. If you're just happen to be a really strong rogue, you might want to make your dexterity your highest, because that's obviously what's going to be what your attacks are based off of as a rogue. But
hiding
and whatnot. But if
jumping
you're a
from
strong
center.
rogue, then throw that second, maybe even third highest roll that you made in your stat rolling into strength. I mean, it's all based on what you want to do.
Maybe you get lucky and you roll high on everything.
Yeah,
you got the beefiest character ever. Good
It
for
can
you.
happen. It
Good
can
for
happen.
you.
But that's also part of session 0, is to be held accountable. Get together with your friends at a table. You know you're not playing that night, but everybody's going to roll their hit points, their stats. The DM is there. Everything is recorded in a way that the DM can see. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that people lie.
Mm-hmm.
People lie.
Sometimes.
But
most time your DM's going to want to see what you're rolling.
most of
Other
the time.
you might actually just say, I trust you. Do what you want.
I mean,
But-
if you're a really close-knit group of friends that you know that they're not going to do something like that, then you can do that.
You might have a DM that says, you can do whatever you want.
want.
You can have the highest amount of ability scores.
You can have 20,
ever.
20, 20, 20, but I
Straight
will
across them.
make sure that every combat and every scenario is going to be the most difficult thing you've ever dealt with in your
Yeah,
life.
it's going to be hell. So after you get all that stuff set, you got your stats and everything, I would say you're moving on to background. And there's a bunch of different backgrounds you can choose from. Like I said, I chose Soldier for Frick. My last Warlock was a Fisherman, which I believe is in Tasha's.
Yeah, some of the edition books bring on a
Right.
few extra backgrounds.
But there's a few backgrounds like Outlander and
Acolyte,
and Charlatan and all that
the
stuff.
haunted one.
The haunted one, which
My go-to, trust me,
step
people.
away from.
I can't step away from it. I love it.
And then moving on from that, you're going to be gathering your equipment. Now, there's a couple ways to do it. There's a system where you roll to see how much gold.
Yeah.
And then after that, you are buying your materials straight off the bat.
Yeah, and there are some backgrounds that come with a little bit of gold to begin with. I mean, if you take the noble profession, I think you start off with like 100 gold.
You start off with
Or the noble background, sorry.
something.
Yeah.
You start off with a certain amount of gold. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head. But, I mean, if you take that, then obviously your character has some connection to nobility, royalty,
Right,
so it makes sense
Deep pockets.
canonically for that to happen.
Deep pockets. The other way to go about it is there are options as to your starting equipment, your Dungeoneer's pack versus your Adventurer's pack. Sometimes you'll get the choice of leather armor or scale armor. You'll get a short sword or 2 daggers, or they'll give you options that way, which don't cost you gold, but you also do not get to roll that gold to start out. Going on from there, what is your backstory, your description of your character?
So my backstory was, my family we were very close, and we lived in a small farming village outside of a nearby town or city, and we were ravaged by an outbreak of demonic attacks. Like, portals opened up everywhere. Everybody was essentially killed, and somehow I survived. This is the typical kind of background for somebody that's part of the haunted one. And my master found me, a wanderer would say. And he took me under his wing because he found a power in me he had seen before and wanted to take me on as an apprentice, essentially. And I lived with him for many, many, many years, traveling throughout the world, the countryside for the most part. And at some point in time, I woke up in the morning and found his clothes on the ground, exactly where he was sleeping, and he was nowhere to be found. Essentially just disappeared. And at that point in time, he had taught me enough to kind of take care of myself. And I, after some contemplation, knew that I believed he wasn't coming back. I mean, all that was left were the robes that he had worn since the day I met him, laying where he fell asleep. So I traveled out, and that's where I found a group of other adventurers. Hooligans, to put it kindly.
They're hooligans.
And that's where our adventure picked up.
Yeah. So you went with the deep lore backstory.
Yeah.
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 Myself, on the other hand.
Whereas Frick
is a simple goblin boy. He's a man. He's 11 years old. He's a man. He really, his grandfather was a goblin hero in the goblin army.
Yep.
And all he wants to do is be a hero like his grandfather. He wants to make his grandfather proud.
And he trained from a child onto that point.
Yeah,
meditation, all the above.
Yeah, and that's it. There's certain key abilities that the goblin folk have in the world that we have going on. But it's just as simple as that. It's just he wants to make his mark in the world. Yeah, his grandfather's past. He carries around his grandfather's broken scimitar, and
he holds on to that real tight.
Yeah, he doesn't want to let that go.
No,
but that's just an idea of how you could go about things, right? You can go the super deep lore aspect of it, or you could have a guy who's just wandering around and just happens upon this, that, or the other thing. You don't have to go too deeply into it. It's not a huge worry. Starting out, you might not have a huge backstory that you can think of, but as you play, you might sit down with your DM and say, hey, what do you think about maybe, Frick actually has some deep connection to the center of the cave in Ulthra,
or even an NPC or monster, a big bad that came up throughout the storyline that you can tie in somehow.
Yeah.
I mean,
what does your character look like?
Mine, he has 2 tails, and he chooses to keep them wrapped under his robes, as he kind of is a bit, I don't know how to say it. He doesn't want people to see that demonic form of him after all this demonic activity that's wrapped around him. Right. He also uses,
especially with the world's history.
Yeah.
More on that later.
And on top of that all, he uses a bit of disguised self to make his eyes not seem that dark pure black that they actually are, more human-like.
Is he red tiefling, or what color is he?
He is a like dark purple,
Gotcha.
dark purple tiefling, which adds to the mysteriousness even more. But for the most part, his horns are very curled back and not so like protruding as most would assume, that like somebody that's got all this demonic history in him would assume.
Right, but it's also very, very comical that you would want to be unassuming and not scare everybody off, but just as soon as you defeat a displacer beast, you gut it and make a cloak out of it.
Yeah.
It's a very cool looking cloak. It's a
great cloak.
Cool.
It's like, it was a culmination of many natural 20s, which I had never rolled them on this character ever.
Yeah, it's the best time to roll natural 20s.
Natural 20s. I perfectly skinned a displacer beast and made him into this gorgeous cloak with the tails intact and everything.
Good job.
And all the above. And yet I'm trying to stay inconspicuous.
Yeah. That didn't work so well.
It didn't work so well, but hey, if you roll that well, you gotta represent.
Yep.
I can't help it.
Frick, on the other hand, is a little more in your face. Doesn't want to be unassuming. He's the 3.5 foot tall goblin with
a full size horse with a drop down ladder.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. That's a whole thing. It's a rope ladder. It's kind of like blinds. It goes. Anyhow, yeah, he's got his like shoulder pauldron. He's got his like Rambo style bandana around his head, full goblin beard, spiky little hair. But he's also he wants to be everybody's buddy. Yeah, right. He wants to be everybody's friend. And he's really out just to protect everybody. He's, got the little goblin.
And he's made that apparent. I mean, even in the last session that we played, I mean, 2 sessions ago, you did everything in your power to guarantee this group of, kind of travelers that you found on the side of the road where you heard of a Vrock attack to get away. Like, you were willing to take away from that whole portion of like, all right, let's go fight the big bad. Like, why not? Yeah. Let's go do it. Yeah. Frick's story wanted to help them.
Yeah, yeah. So there you go. That's pretty much it. Like, you could go deep into lore with your character. You can let your character develop over time as the game progresses. You don't have to have a whole lot of idea of how you want to start. Just pick a starting point and then go from there. With that said, I think character creation is done. You kind of get the point, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
You got your race. Choose what race you want. Whether you want it to be something that you feel strongly towards, or if you want a metagame, make sure that all those racial attributes go towards whatever class you're going to play.
Yep.
Class.
Yeah.
Choose a class.
Or go the other way.
That you want to or go the other way.
It might be a little bit difficult.
You can go class, race, class. It's up to you.
But what I meant was like you could pick let's say you pick a Goliath, but he really wants to be a rogue. Right? Right. He really wants to be sneaky. Like that's going to be it might be a little tough with the racial features that go along with a Goliath. Anyhow, that's character creation in a nutshell. We could go deeper and talk forever, but we're not going to do that. We're already at about 25 minutes. So guess what? We're going to cut it there. Do us a favor. Tell us how much you like Ben not being here and behind the camera at Basement Arcana Cast.
We're Basement Arcana -1 right now.
At gmail.com. Follow us on YouTube, Basement Arcana, and Instagram. Basement_Arcana. And let us know what you think. I think we're done.
I think we're done too. I think we've covered character creation.
But
on that note, if you'd like us to go deeper,
let us know.
Let us know.
Also, I don't even know where I was going to go with that.
No,
Anyhow, oh yeah, in memory of Ben, any final thoughts?
I think,
Nope. Bye.
yep, bye. Have a good time. We love you.
Hey, buddy.
This is all going in. I'm not cutting it where you guys are.
No, I know.
This is going in.
It's all in there. It's everything is content, brother.
Content.
Everything is content.
Everything is content.